Happy Thursday. One thing that I realized that I probably didn't do, because typically I would record on Instagram, like on live, and then download them and share them, was introduce myself. My name is Bria. I'm from the city, Detroit, and I will be turning 31 in a few short weeks, which sounds crazy, but I'll be 31 in a few weeks, and the journey thus far has had a lot of twists and turns and a lot of things that have added to the wisdom that I want to share and the realization that I'm going to be sharing here today. And so this will be entitled The Will of God. Dun, dun, dun. No. But growing up and in my household, I was very much so in church. And that included Sunday school and Bible study and children's church and being in the choir and not celebrating Halloween, but instead harvest season and so many different things, and I'm not denouncing any of those things. This is not to bash any of those things, because those things are very much so still embedded in my foundation. But one thing that I always heard growing up was study to show thyself approved, which is a scripture, but also the importance of knowing God for yourself. And the context that I understood that in was knowing scriptures. I thought knowing God for yourself was being that person in church when the pastor was preaching, finishing the end of the scripture so that you can show people, I know scripture, I'm a good Christian, I know scriptures. Shout out to my nail that broke. I thought knowing God for yourself was somebody that prayed fervently and consistently. I thought a person that knew God for themselves, went to church every Sunday and served in some capacity in church. I thought knowing God for yourself meant that you did things, everything right, and that you lived your life in a very particular way that was within the confines of, very specific religious rules. And since then, I've learned God in such an expanded and beautiful and patient and holistic way. And I wanted to share that because that's the lesson that I'm learning right now. It's so profound to me, and it's been so freeing for me that I wanted to share it in the hopes of it maybe being the same for someone else, perhaps, or somebody else being able to put things into further context for themselves. And so you want to hear it? Here it go. So I recently was thinking about my authentic self and thinking about how I've always been one. I've said for a long time I had a vision. I would ask people, like, why are you here? And they'd be like, what do you mean, like here right now? Like in the building or in the space we were in? I'm like, no, like why are you on earth? Like why are you alive? Like why are you here? What are you here to do? And I would get some looks like, what is this girl talking about? Because I thought that everybody just knew why they were here. And so I always had a very clear idea of what I was here to do. And I always had a knowing about myself. I always tell people I follow my knowing. And I'm very in tune with that. And there have been times and experiences that I have had that could have been avoided. I don't believe in that, because I don't necessarily believe in wasted time. I don't believe in mistakes. I don't believe in any of those things. There's nothing that, happens by happenstance. If I'm in traffic or I miss a light or, anything like that happens, I don't make it to a space at the time I was hoping for. I'm always like, even today I was in traffic and I was trying to get through a light. I didn't get through the light. And I was just like, well, they saved me from an accident. If I'm eating something and I drop a piece of food on the floor, I'm like, that one piece had salmonella. So the fact that it dropped on the floor just saved my life, or saved me being sick. If I took a different way and I so-called missed my turn, I'm like, I took the scenic route. I was in a school a few weeks ago and the security guard was like, oh, the office is right there. I'm like, okay. Because I don't feel like anything ever just happens just for no reason, because everything works for my good. So even people in the past that have maybe tried to break my spirit or been malicious or had ill intentions for me, it's okay, because all things work for my good. And I do believe that people, experiences, places, all those things, relationships come into your life for a reason, a very specific reason that, and it's a mutual thing. So maybe that person didn't get, or is playing the victim or pointing the finger or what have you, but everything happens for my good. You know, something that happened only helped me to evolve, or helped me to build awareness about something, or helped me realize something about myself, you know, brought things up to the surface so that they can then spill over, so I could actually take inventory of what was in front of me, you know. And so again, nothing just happens for no reason. Nothing is just happening, you know, as a punishment or because you're a bad person or any of those things. And so I stay in that space. And so anyway, the will of God, again, I always thought that the will of God was had parameters to it. What I'm understanding now, that's been so liberating and adding to my authentic self, is realizing that if I am fearfully and wonderfully made, a few things: being fearfully and wonderfully made, being made in the image of God, God not giving us a spirit of fear, and recognizing if all those things are true, or provided that all those things are true, then the Bria that is fully authentic, that is showing up in my full authentic self, you know, that means that I am perfect. One lady that I consider to be a master teacher, someone that I've learned a lot from, is Professor Melanie. And she went to Ecuador maybe a month or two ago. And she was sharing this space in Ecuador that she went to, a village, a community, what have you, that she went to. I think the space that she was in totality had 8 principles. However, in the space that she was in particular, focused on 3 principles. And one of the 3 principles was Munya, M-U-N-Y-A. And pretty much, it's the symbol of it is a circle, and the symbolism of that circle is that we are all whole, and in that the soul is perfect. So yeah, you might have stolen, you might have lied, you might have cheated on something, you may have done something, you know, and carried this guilt and this shame, or this you know, stayed in this low space about it and felt bad about it or unworthy about it. But it's recognizing that after you part ways from, you know, your physical vessel, your soul is permanent. And so your soul is perfect. And so, when she said that, I really just started to practice that. And other things that she, you know, because I don't want to just be the person that knows a bunch of things in theory, or that, you know, that has great sound bites or advice and things like that, or learned a bunch of things and just to flaunt around, hey, I know this. I genuinely like to put those things into practice, and oftentimes it comes with trial and error. You know, you learn something new, you know, just like in school, you learn, you know, the long division, and you may first try it out and you may not get it right the first time, but I always say practice makes better, not perfect, because I'm already perfect. You know, I'm just constantly perfecting. And so anyhow, and realizing that God did not give me the spirit of fear, that I am fearfully and wonderfully made, that you know, God created me to be exactly who I am. Like, even when you think about, like, I don't know, like if you're into birth charts, all you need is you know, your time of birth, the city that you're in, state, you know, place that you were born in, and your birthday, obviously, and then you can pull up your birth chart. And so with that, and studying my own over the so many years, I realized that I have my own quirks and ways of being and ways of approaching things and handling things and all that. Everybody has the same thing, or their own way of the same thing. And so with that, it started to allow me to appreciate people's differences more. You know, I may approach something this way, like my favorite color, my mouse, my work bag, my water bottle. All my favorite color is pastel pink. So if you give me an option of, you know, something, if all you have is pink, just one shade, I'll take the pink one. But if you have options of different shades, pastel pink will be my choice. However, you know, you might talk to somebody else. Maybe their favorite color is blue. Maybe somebody else's favorite color is yellow. Maybe somebody else's favorite, you know, everybody is different. And so, and that's more than okay. But the way that you are, the way that you were designed, is absolute perfection. And so, in realizing that God created me and knew exactly what I was going to do, exactly what my life was going to look like, exactly the decisions that I was going to make, you know, and all of the things that may seem like flaws or just what have you. God knew all those things and still created me with a purpose and a mission, and with gifts, you know, equipping me with gifts. And so, if I was made in the image of God, then that means that I'm perfect, right? And then I started to think more about that, and just like, okay, I think about some of the relationships that I've cultivated over time, whether that be friendships, what have you, family relationships, dating and all those things. And I've thought about how I've showed up in those relationships and what I thought I was capable of experiencing. As a little girl, I always knew, outside of the vision God gave me, I always had this knowing that I was going to be in love, like the real thing. And just like Luther Vandross's song, Wait for Love, I genuinely always believed in waiting for love. So I don't believe in just being in a relationship with someone and building romantically with someone just for, just to be frivolous. I don't believe in frivolous relationships because I genuinely appreciate who I am and enjoy my own space and my own company. And so just being, and not even just, dating, even the people I'm around. Like if I spend time with you, if I am in your space, if I allow you to be in my space, that is because I appreciate your presence. And I don't take that lightly. If I appreciate someone's presence, that is like top tier for me, because it's some family that I choose not to be around. There are some people where it's like, I'll be cordial. I'm always going to be respectful. But if I don't appreciate your presence, I'm not going to be around you, And so, when you think about, anyway, I don't want to get off on a tangent. So, another one. So, I always believed in waiting for love. But as much as I believed in the fact that I was going to have this beautiful, grand, bigger than me type of love, I always envisioned the type of mother I wanted to be, the type of wife I wanted to be, the type of person that I wanted to be in this world. I always had a very clear idea of those things, and those things only evolved over time. But even though I knew that I was always going to be in love and experience the real thing, the thing that, the type of love that people genuinely desire, but often settle, for remnants of it or glimpses of it or pieces of it and things like that, I always knew I was going to be in the real thing, a part of the real thing. However, even though I had that knowing, I also had a lot of doubt. And in recent, like this last week, I'm realizing more like in depth how much doubt I had with a lot of those things. And everything, I always say, everything boils down to two very clear things: love or fear. That's it. There are many derivatives of both of those things, but everything either boils down to love or fear. That is it. So anxiety, worry, doubt, shame, guilt, unworthiness, inadequacy, anxiety, depression, stress, all those things are not love. They are derivatives of fear. And so if God did not give me that spirit, then that means those things are not of me, And so this is not like a religious video whatsoever. This is just a life video, I guess if you would call it something, but it's just about life, because the context that I understood the will of God as and in was not completely wrong, but it was so it was just lacking so much context. It was lacking so much understanding. It was lacking authenticity. And so I remember when I was younger, this was like maybe in middle school or so, and I really thought to myself, I'm not going to be nice anymore, because I'm like, nice doesn't get you anywhere. And for a minute, I was getting in trouble. I was getting kicked out of school. I was getting into fights. I had so many referrals and detentions, and I was getting suspended. I had never been suspended. I was never the kid that got in trouble. But I had a stint in my life where I was very angry. I had a lot of anxiety. I was very sad and hurting, and I did not know what to do with those things, and I didn't have the tools to navigate through those things, and I couldn't act a fool at home. So when I went to school, I acted a fool. Until my dad came up to the school one day, did a pop-up, and found out I had all these referrals almost. Anyway, tangent. So so if God did not give me the spirit of fear, but of love, I remember the whole scripture, love, something in a sound mind. If God did not give me that, nor the derivatives of that, then that means that if I am stressed out, and not that we're human, we're having a human experience, you're going to have human emotions, it's very real. I'm not trying to act like be happy every day. I don't say happy Thursday, happy Monday, happy whatever because I'm in a great mood every day. I don't say it because I'm trying to, have this perception, this unrealistic perception. I say that because that is my acknowledgement of the knowing that there is a miracle in every day, that there is something in everything, even in the things that are strenuous, the things that are challenging, the things, that process of things happening in life that brings things up to the surface so that you can then deal with them. Sometimes, like this glass of water, I'm sipping on the water, fine, right? It's all cool. But if I keep filling this glass up, this mason jar up, and then it starts to run over, then that means it's gonna spill on these floors. Then that means I have to get something to wipe it up and pay attention to what's going on. You know, what made it spill? What's, you know what I'm saying? All those things. Then I have to start taking inventory because now I'm aware of something that maybe I wasn't paying attention to before. It's the same thing in life. Sometimes things will consistently happen and build up and build up and build up and build up, pushing things further up to the surface. So then there's an outpour. So then you start to pay attention. It's just like with our bodies. There's a book, one of my favorite books. I would probably say like one of my top 10 favorite books. It's by Louise Hay called... I was about to say one of my other favorite books, but by Louise Hay called You Can Heal Your Life. And there are many editions of that book, but in the book, it pretty much talks about how physical ailments, physical, psychological, all those ailments are manifestations of something that is either spiritual and or emotional or both. Or covers both. Anyway, but yeah, so perfect example. I was in Atlanta a few weeks ago, and I'll talk about that experience in another video. But I was in Atlanta a few weeks ago, and I went up the mountain, Stone Mountain Trail, which was such a beautiful experience. On my way down, I slipped. I did not fall. Okay, I slipped. Only because I did not have on proper shoes. When I slipped, I fell onto my knee. Scraped up my knee. My knee was bleeding on the way down. But it wasn't like I wasn't in pain where I couldn't get down, thank God. But again, sometimes when you're not paying attention to something, further things will happen to bring attention to that space. In the book, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, there's a breakdown like in the back of the book, kind of like an index that have like all these different body parts and ailments and things like that. And it gives a brief explanation or description rather of like the issue that ailment was trying to bring your attention to or to communicate to you. And so, like, for example, if your neck is, I was saying on here that this was a few months ago, I had a crick in both sides of my neck. Never have I ever had a crick in both sides of my neck. I really, that's happened, like maybe I can count on one hand how many times I've had a crick in my neck. But on both sides, what does your neck do? It looks at all things. It takes things in. It's flexible and things like that. Sometimes, when you have certain issues, that is your body trying to send you communication. When I was younger, small tangent, when I was younger, my dad worked in the health field, and amongst like different fields he worked in. Anyhow, he always told us when we were young that when you go to the bathroom, pay attention. If your urine is dark, that is your body communicating with you. Your body is always communicating with you, just like your spirit is always communicating with you, or God, or your intuition, or the universe, or signs, or your ancestors, Allah, whatever I don't get hung up in religions and things like that, because everybody is saying the same thing. It's just variations of the same thing, the same source. However, our bodies and things are always in constant communication with us. It's like, are you paying attention? Maybe today you have an itch in your throat, and the next thing you know, you have a sore throat, and the next thing you know, you have laryngitis or something like that. Well, before that happened, there were things that you didn't say. There were words that you were not communicating, because it's a blockage communication. And if you're not in tune with your body, you're paying attention, those communications then begin to get louder and louder. Quick story, another tangent, quick story. Maybe like 2-3 months ago, my little cousin, I went over to my family's house, and I got off work, went over there, and my little cousin G, she wanted to go outside. And little did I know, before I got there, she had my other cousin take her outside, and she had just come in not long ago, but she wanted me to also take her outside. That same day at work, we took our kids on a field trip. I was exhausted, okay, because I had more fun on the field trip than the kids probably, and so I was exhausted. By the time I got over there, I was gonna go home after, but I went over to my family's house, and she wanted me to go outside with her. I'm like, okay, G, hold on. I'm like, Giselle, I really want to take a nap. She's like, well, you can take a nap later, blah, blah, blah. She always, like, when she wants to do something, she's gonna help you come up with all these reasons of why she can still do what she want to do, which I respect. Very intelligent. Anyhow, she So I was like, okay, G. And then she was calling my name. I just started ignoring her because I'm like, maybe she'll just stop. So next thing you know, she has a phone. Next thing you know, I'm hearing this ridiculous screaming. And I'm like, it startled me. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why would you do that? And she was like, I was trying to get your attention. I said, Giselle, let's go outside. Let's go outside. Because I'm like, at this point, you done worked for it. You done put in the work, to go outside. Baby, let's go outside. I didn't give her not one more excuse. And not that they weren't excuses, because, I was really exhausted. But I took her outside because she worked too much for it. And again, I said, why would you do that? And she said, to get your attention. Our bodies are the same way. Our spirit are the same way. It's set up the same way. If you do not listen, if you go to the bathroom, and he always said, your urine should be, fairly light. If not, that's your body communicating with you. You need to drink more water. Maybe there's something going on with your kidneys, Maybe you're having too much sugar, or, different acids and things like that. He always told us when you go and you have excrement, when you defecate, it should be long and brown like a log. If it is not that, that means your body is lacking fiber. That means you're consuming something that is not nourishing to your body, so your body is trying to quickly get rid of it. So maybe you have diarrhea or something like that. Our body is always communicating with you and your spirit, and it's so beneficial to be in tune with your spirit, with your body, with nature and all those things that are around you and in your environment, even in your relationships, all those things, because they are drawing attention to what's already going on inside. So as within, so without. As within, so I'm saying it wrong. Why am I saying it wrong? I don't know. As above, so below. As within, so without. Even in church growing up, we said, our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, above, below. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. People are saying the same thing, just different iterations of the same thing. And so I started to think about all of these things. I spent a lot of time thinking. I spent a lot of time ever since I was a little girl. I would be in my room just making sense of things and writing things down and connecting dots to make sense of some of the things that, that I had going on, and that I was seeing and then experiencing and everything. And so anyhow, if I am fearfully and wonderfully made, well, not if, because I am fearfully and wonderfully made, because I am made in God's image, and because God did not give me the spirit of fear and my soul is perfect always, then that means that I have the choice of which space I want to operate in, love or fear. Now, because we are having this human experience, we have bills, we have jobs, we have, responsibilities and obligations and all these things. Sometimes our attention and focus can be distracted from that very core truth that is true for us all. And so recently I started to think about, not even recently, this was, it's been some time in the making, but again, I thought I figured it out, that part, and then next thing you know, there was more that was being uncovered, as always. And so I realized that in some of my relationships, and again, I'm not talking just about romantic ones, with family, with friends, my relationship with life more than anything, because the people that show up are just characters of the story that we've already written and that we've been acting in accordance with. But I started to think about my relationships and how self-sabotaging I have been, and some of the people that I've chosen to be a part of my life in different capacities because of fear. And some things that I noticed that maybe I was like, oh, I saw that, or I saw how you treated people, or I saw how you carried yourself, or I saw how you showed up in those ways, or I heard you say that, or I noticed this thing, but I'm like, oh no, that wouldn't happen to me, or no, they just do that with them, or I'm choosing to look at something else when this is right in front of me. And that is a form of self-sabotage, and it's like I started to think, why was I doing that? Why was I showing up that way? Why was that my relationship with life? And I started to think about, as a little girl, when I knew certain things. There were certain things I just always knew. Nobody told me. I didn't read about it. I didn't hear about it. But I knew certain things. I've always operated out of my knowing. I've always had a very strong connection with my spirit and my knowing. And so I thought about when I was a little girl, and I always had this knowing that I would be in love and I would experience the real thing. Ain't nothing like the real thing, baby. Okay, but I always know I was gonna experience the real thing. And as I started to get older and life starts to life, and you know, you start to have certain experiences and you have certain relationships and things, sometimes you step away from those truths. And after, like, as I got older and in life, I started to give in to this notion that I wasn't good enough, and that the type of person that I wanted to be in a relationship with and marry one day, that I had to be perfect. I had to show up perfect. I had to be perfect. I had to sit perfectly. I had to act all these things. Like, I had to be this this caricature of myself almost. And that doesn't mean that I didn't show up in my relationship with life fully authentic, because for a long time I thought I did. For a long time I thought I knew myself. But again, sometimes you have to have experiences that continue to push things up to the top until they start to boil over, and you start to take inventory of what's there. Like, oh, I don't love that. Oh, I didn't realize that was in there. Oh, I forgot that was over here. I hadn't looked at that in a while. And so that started to happen. And yeah, I started to realize, okay, Bria, what is at the source of this self-sabotage? Like, you know that you've been self-sabotaging, and not in every relationship, not in every way I was showing up, but in some pivotal ways for sure, that I wanted to step into a new space in. And so I began to just get to the root and say, okay, where did this come from? Why am I showing up like this? Why is this my second nature? Because my first nature is love. My first nature is authenticity. You know, it's like, when you think about it, it's like you're cheating the world, you're cheating your relationships, you're cheating yourself when you're not in a space of full authenticity, despite who you're around, despite where you are. When you're not being authentic, you are cheating yourself. And really, you're cheating God. God gave you a gift. If you are fearfully and wonderfully made, if God designed you to be you, that's what I mentioned earlier about your birth chart. When you think, my parents met because my older cousin was in the hospital, and my aunt, his mom, worked at the hospital. In that hospital, my auntie and my dad worked in the hospital together, in Children's Hospital in the city. My cousin was sick, and my dad sings. My dad was holding him and singing to him when he was in the hospital. My mom was going up there to check on her nephew, see him in the hospital. She saw my dad and was like, who was that, you know? And so had my little cousin, that's when you think about the intentionality of God. Had my little cousin not been sick, he would not have been in the hospital for my dad to be singing to him. Had the shift been different, you know what I'm saying? If my dad had left us on a lunch break, or had been tending to somebody else, or, you know, not formed a relationship and, you know, been on cool terms or whatever with my auntie, that moment would have not happened. My mom could have been doing anything that day. Maybe she, you know, it could have been a situation where she couldn't get off work, or anything, a myriad of things, you know. There are infinite possibilities. And so the fact that we are even alive is a miracle in and of itself, and shows you the intentionality of God, and that you are supposed to be here. You know, that you are a part of this interwoven fabric to the entire, okay, now I'm just trying to be deep, the entire quilt of life. But yeah, the fact that I'm here, that you're here, is a miracle, is an intricate, intentional miracle. And so when I start to think about that, and the fact that I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and the fact that, you know, I was born in Virgo season, so of course I'm going to approach life in a very organized and analytical and critical way, because I won't get into that tangent. But, you know, Virgo rules the digestive system of the body. And what does that do all the time? It tries to figure out whatever you're consuming. Okay, what is nourishing? Where can I put this? Where does this go? How do I organize and categorize this for the betterment of this person's body and this vessel? And then what do I need to dispel from the body via excrement, or, you know, through sweat, or all these different things. So I won't get into that. But, you know, I was born at that time, and then the moon was in a certain place when I was born, and the stars and different planets and things like that contributed to the way that I am. So just like right now, we are in Virgo season. And so there are people that are like, hey, let me get my health in order. Hey, let me get my routines in order. Hey, let me become more organized, or make a plan, or pay attention to detail, or what have you. It's the same thing, you know. And so if all these these infinite possibilities were working together so that I had an opportunity to come through and to be born in this lifetime. I could have been born at any time. Well, my soul could have, come through at any time, but it decided to come through. God intended for me to come through at this time. Then that means that if I am not in my fullness, in my authenticity, that I am cheating myself, I am cheating God, I am cheating my relationships. And so I started to think about those things as to why I was doing them. And then I started to think, oh, it's because of fear. It's because of doubt. It's because I've seen this and I know it to be true, but I'm not fully certain. Or I don't think I'm worthy enough. Or I don't think that I'm valuable enough just yet. Or I feel like I have way more to do to be able to be worthy of those things. And that is not the truth. And so in that realization, it's like, oh, if I'm worrying and fearful and stressing and having anxiety or overthinking and so caught in my head that I am unable to be in the present moment, that means I'm outside of the will of God. Because God didn't call that for me. God didn't design that for me. If I think that I can't have that because I'm for some reason not worthy, if I feel like I have to enter this relationship because the one that I truly desire, I don't feel worthy and good enough for, and I'm sabotaging myself to begin with, I'm doing that only because I am outside of the will of God. And it's just like if you lay down with stray dogs and you wake up with fleas, are you going to be mad at those stray dogs? Like, oh my God, I can't believe you did this to me. I can't believe you left me with fleas and I got to go and get all of this taken care of and, figure out all these remedies and I'm scratching all over and it's so uncomfortable. Are you going to be mad at them? Or are you going to say, you know what? Not even be mad at yourself because, I don't know why you would lay down with stray dogs, but maybe, hell, you didn't think you was worthy enough to run with the pack. I don't know. But if anything, it's not pointing the blame and being the victim like, oh, they did this to me. I can't believe they left me in this condition. I can't believe this happened to me. Why me? I can't believe this happened to me of all people. And you know what I'm saying? It's just like, oh, okay. I realized the predicament that I drew in closer because I needed that to happen. Again, that boiling over so I can then take inventory and make a different decision. That's it. Because it had to uncover something that you constantly were tripping over and not paying attention to. A cyclical experience that you were having, like, oh man, this always happens to me. Why do I always go through this? Have you ever been... Every friendship, every relationship, every job, every, group, every whatever, it's always the same narrative. It seems like the same script, just different characters, different settings every time. It's not them. And it's not necessarily you exactly. It's that you are operating outside of the will of God. And just like if you lay down with dogs, stray dogs, and you wake up with fleas, it's the same thing. Outside of the will of God, there are so many things that can happen. Now, granted, grace and mercy and provision will still keep you in certain things because it's like, oh, this didn't go to the magnitude that it could have went. It went just far enough so that I can learn the lesson. It went just far enough to hurt me enough to bubble things over, things continue to pile up so that I could take inventory and say, oh, I've seen this before. And if I would like to see something different going forward, what can I do differently? What did I do all those times in the past? Not be my authentic self, cheat myself, doubt myself. Okay, God, I'm going to give this to you, but I don't know if you can... Or it's not working out. Just like I said, I'm about to be 31 in like a few weeks. Which sounds crazy. That sounds crazy, but it's like, dang. I guess it's because, how we saw certain ages when we were younger. But one thing with age, I realized time is so quick. A year is nothing. A year is nothing. A year is absolutely nothing. A year is like that. A month is super ridiculously quick. But a year is nothing. And it's like if I can look at time when it comes to something that I'm more detached from, It's like, okay, Bria, why are you so fearful when things don't seem to go at the pace that are in alignment with what you desire? Because when you desire something and you're focused on it, and maybe it doesn't come in the timing or in the package or in the way that you would want, you get restless and you start to, doubt. Oh, see, it's not gonna happen. See, I'm gonna take this back. I'm gonna start worrying about this again. You step out of the will of God. That's not your place. Everybody says stay in your own lane. Well, stay in your lane when it comes to the will of God. You don't have to, but there's a heck of a lot of stuff out there that is outside of the will of God, that is like, you don't have to be there. Just earlier, I had an experience where I was about to get real pissed off because somebody said something to me, and I was like, it was just so unnecessary. And it wasn't necessarily like, it was to me, but it wasn't to me. It was just rude. And it wasn't targeted at, it was to me, but it wasn't like targeted at me as a person or like any of those things. And I just was like, I said what I needed to say, but I was very calm. I wasn't trying to go off. I wasn't trying to make nobody look stupid or anything. I was just like, I said what I needed to say, and it wasn't progressing in a productive direction. So I just said, okay. And I excused myself. And when I walked away, I was very pissed off because I'm just like, what? But then I literally took a moment to meditate, a few minutes, and I was deep breathing and like, nope, I'm not taking on that energy because it's not mine to take on. I'm not taking on that energy. I don't need to take on that stress. Why am I building up stress for something that I don't have to? It's a choice. Will I do that every time? No. Will I have moments of stress in the future? Probably so. We're human. But at the same time, I've been finding myself more and more, when I find myself outside of the will of God, there's shorter and shorter spans of time in between the time that I'm out and I'm in now. And when I find myself outside of the will of God, I'm able to say, oh, I don't have to be here. Let me go on back, and that's such a beautiful thing. It's such a beautiful muscle to learn how to exercise and to move and to, strengthen. And that's the space that I'm in right now, and it's beautiful. So do I show up in every space fully authentic? I'm working on it. I'm absolutely working on it. And when I'm present, when I'm in the moment, when I'm my fullness, when I'm operating in my fullness and existing, I should say, in my fullness, it's so freeing because it's not like I'm thinking about how to be or thinking about how I should show up or wondering, is this, even right now, this thing is 38 freaking minutes. And I'm like, oh. But again, context is important, but all these things, wanted to be said, and so I just allowed myself to be a vessel for those things to be said, and especially in a way that is palatable, in a way that everybody can digest, because I think sometimes in church, not every church, because there are some great churches, I've been to some. However, sometimes in the context of religion, some things can seem very judgy or seem very like, oh, I can't compete with that, or I can't, I might as well just stay over here because I'm not holy enough for this, or I can't do that, or what have you, or, things come with so many strict guidelines and things like that. And it's like, God isn't that way, But yeah, I feel like when I am being my most authentic self, when I am cultivating my best self, when I'm being all that God has created me to be, I'm still perfect when somebody get on my nerves and I tell them, stop talking to me, get out of my face, go on somewhere. I'm still, I'm still wonderfully made when I'm on the road and somebody pissed me off and I'm not going to incriminate myself. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm still that, regardless of all those things. And so I just really wanted to share that. There are some more things that I look forward to sharing and speaking about in due time, because there's some things I'm still working through and connecting dots to, and healing from and learning from and building awareness about. And there, I'm sure will be more awareness to be, built from even this. But I did want to share this. There's some things I was watching the Cam Newton interview with Dr. Bryant. And it was cringy at first, but then they got to a really beautiful space towards the end. And I'll share more about that in another video because this is already long enough. But to those people that have been interacting with my channel and commenting and things like that, and liking and all those things, and leaving comments and things. I already said commenting, but I really appreciate it. I think it's really, really beautiful. I've been having conversations, which people always come up to me and just talk to me, or I always find myself having the most beautiful conversations, and so many times I walk away from those conversations and people are telling me, I never have conversations like this. Just a week ago, a guy was like, he was like, man, I really enjoyed our conversation. He was like, I never have conversations like that. So many people have surface conversations. I'm just not a surface person. Like, there's so many things that happen in life. Like, everybody has a story. Everybody has something, than to just talk about stupid surface stuff. And so I appreciated hearing that. So I'd love, if you got something out of this, if you watched a minute or all 41 minutes of this, I'd love to hear what you think, and how you are navigating the will of God. And when you find yourself outside of that, how you bring yourself back. Or just maybe a perspective that can add to the awareness that I'm building on. And so anyhow, happy Thursday. I hope you have a beautiful day. I hope today has been beautiful to you. And yeah. Cheers to being in the will of God. That was so corny. Anyhow, may you be loved on and seen and celebrated and supported and honored for your most authentic self, by someone, even if that someone is yourself, because it's important to celebrate ourselves too. Happy Thursday.